Hello and welcome back to the Cloud Color ASMR channel. I know it's been a little while since I posted. There's a lot to catch you up on, and I figured I would do a Whispered Ramble ASMR with a little bit of tapping for my tap homies, interspersed throughout the video. And I do have various objects here to play with, so I will be trying to remember to include that throughout the video. Okay. First of all, what do you guys think about the video quality? I've made some changes to my setup in terms of the technology that I'm using, like a new camera, new mic. The reason being because I started in this last year taking my YouTube channel, my other YouTube channel. I don't know if you guys knew that I had another channel. It's a bit more of a traditional, it's not ASMR, but it's been following my journey through various things. I have some music on there. I have some vlogs on there, and recently I started doing like a follow along on my Etsy journey because I've been trying to sell digital products and figure out a way to make that shop successful. I haven't hacked it yet, newsflash, but it's been really fun over there, just pouring my creativity into that outlet. It has been taking quite a bit of my time, which is unfortunately why I haven't been spending as much time here on the ASMR channel. So please forgive me for that. I have missed you guys though, and I appreciate anyone waiting around, waiting for me to upload. I really do appreciate your support. But anyway, I love the new quality. I have a Canon I always get it wrong. It's a Canon G7X Mark III. It's like one of the most recommended vlogging cameras that are out there in the semi-affordable price range. And then I have a Rode, I don't know the exact model. It doesn't say. As far as I can tell from here, I can't see what the exact model is, but it's also a pretty affordable Rode mic that is able to connect directly into the camera, which has made such a difference for my audio quality. And I think it's a lot of fun. I feel very official now. It's a step in the right direction, that's for sure. And so Whispered Ramble about my year. Again, I know it's been several months since I updated you guys. And there's been quite a lot of change in my life in this past year. Let me take a sip of tea. Let me sip the tea before I get into the tea. So, in late November of 2022, I actually quit my longtime job of 6 years. And the reason why I quit is because it was so demanding on me. I quite honestly just was extremely burnt out. Let me kind of set the stage. I don't want to say the exact career field or job that I did, but I will try to paint the picture. So I started this job in 2017, late 2017, which is actually, I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter. So I started that job literally like 2 weeks before I gave birth to my daughter. And I took the job because I was able to do it from home. home. And at the time, 2017, remote jobs, good, high-paying remote jobs, were not really in abundance yet. And so it was a really great opportunity at the time for my circumstances. My husband was the only one bringing in income because after I had my first child, my son, in 2015, late 2015, I couldn't imagine going back to work and leaving my baby in the care of strangers. Also, I was breastfeeding, so that was a big reason why I wanted to stay home. And so for that year and a half after he was born, I was exclusively, stay-at-home mom. I took on all the household responsibilities, groceries, paying the bills, that kind of stuff. But eventually, finances became an issue, and it became clear that I needed to go back to work. So when the opportunity came, when I was 9 months pregnant with my second child, they're only 2 years apart, FYI. I went ahead and took the opportunity, started the job, and it was full-time. And I pretty much hit the ground running ever since that point, end of 2017. And this is the same job. It's wasn't in exactly the same role throughout all the 6 years, but I was working for the same company, and quite honestly, the workload just only increased over time, and it was already very crazy to begin with. When I started the job, it was all brand new to me. I was spending 10, 12, 14-hour days just to keep up. But I did that happily because I wanted to thrive in the role. I wanted to do a good job. And my performance was directly related to the amount of money that I was making, so there was a lot of incentive for me to do that. And honestly, looking back, I don't know how I did it. I had a 2-year-old toddler. I had a newborn. I was working from home, and my husband was working in an office in a corporate job, so I really didn't have that much help during the day, and sometimes even in the evenings, because he was also occasionally taking freelance work in the off hours from his day job. So I was still a stay-at-home mom, homemaker. I was still responsible for almost all the chores, all the cooking, because I placed a huge responsibility, or not responsibility, but importance on cooking at home and feeding healthy meals for my family. So just imagine me working this crazy job. It was full-time, but honestly, because I worked from home, if you've ever worked from home, you know how easy it is to overwork yourself and always stay in the working mode. And so that became a problem for me, as you can imagine, as the work started to pick up. I was kind of burning the candle at both ends for a very long time, for those 6 years. And quite honestly, it wasn't a healthy time for me. I had to put my own needs on the back burner in a lot of ways, even my own creative pursuits and desires. As you guys know, I'm a pretty creative person. I like to write music. I like to write songs. I like to make videos, make ASMR. So I did my best to keep up during those years, but as you guys probably know, I was very inconsistent, and that was why, because my family and my job came first over everything. And looking back, I do wish that I had stepped back from the work, put up more boundaries, protected my peace, and also put my family and my self-care, because I I can't give from an empty cup. I'll say that again. I can't give from an empty cup. So I wish I had kept that in my mind a little bit better than I did. Because by November, well, honestly, by 2022, that entire year, I was beyond stressed. It got to the point where I was telling my husband that I was so decision fatigued because the role that I was in at my job was so decision heavy. It was so problem solving heavy. Every single day there was something new on my plate. That was just the nature of the job. That I told him that I really was leaning on him to make all the decisions for our family, for our day to day. And yeah, because and that should have kind of been my red flag, that I was very, very unhappy where I was at. I had lived in survival mode for so long that I didn't even recognize I was there until I started therapy in mid-2020. Sorry, not 2020. Mid-2020. Mid-2022. Which was a game changer for me. I started seeing a Christian online therapist. And thankfully at the time, in that job, I did have enough money to pay for the therapist. So that was fortunate. I'm grateful for that. And I saw her for a few months. I haven't seen her since earlier this year because of leaving my job and cutting off a huge part of our household income in the process. But I saw her during a time when I really needed somebody to talk to and to start digging underneath the surface of what was going on. Because yes, the job was a huge pain point because it was taking up so much mental real estate all the time. I wasn't dealing with any issues in my personal life because I couldn't. I had no mental capacity to think creatively, to problem solve, to make changes in my life because I was barely getting by emotionally every single day. And I had so much, I hate to call it PTSD because PTSD is a very real, severe issue for people, and I don't want to minimize that, but that's the only thing that I can compare it to, explain it, because my job was so 24/7. I was because of the nature of the job, I was pretty much always on call. And when there was an issue with if there was an issue in the job, which there were always issues, okay? My job was essentially to put out fires all day long. That means I could be called on the weekend, I could be called on the off hours. The emails were always piling up, especially as my portfolio grew larger and larger to a ridiculous degree. I literally felt like I was doing the job of 2, 3, sometimes even 4 people, because I was also helping the company with these other jobs, other tasks outside of my role. And again, that was probably more so an issue with my boundary setting and wanting to help and having a hard time saying no, because here's the thing, other colleagues of mine were also very overworked. So I felt compassion for them, and I would offer to help at times when honestly I probably shouldn't have. But I don't regret it. I'm a kind person. I don't regret being kind. But it was a good lesson for me to never let things get that out of control ever again. And so that's through therapy after a few months of seeing my therapist, I came to the conclusion that something in my life needed to give for me to start getting control of my life again, become the person that I wanted to be. Because I really felt like during this season, being in survival mode for so long, I really lost myself. I lost who I wanted to become. I felt like I wasn't who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be this person where work was taking up my life, my brain 95% of the time, and only giving my children, only giving my husband, only giving myself the other 5%. Like, that was just so horrifically imbalanced, and it became clear to me at a certain point, after talking things through with my therapist, that the job needed to be the first thing to go so that I can actually get some space and some clarity to think things through and figure out what's even going on in my life. Because at the time I did have some personal issues going on, some marriage issues going on, and like I said, I didn't like the mother that I was being to my children. I felt like I was always pushing them off because work was more important. Because, guys, I wasn't even taking really any real vacations. Like, every now and then, we would go stay in a cabin, we would visit family out of town, but I always had to bring my computer. I always had to be on call. It wasn't a true vacation where I was able to unplug 100%, which is what I really needed, but I couldn't, because I would regret it. I would regret it if I took a day or two or a week off. Oh my God, I could never take a week off during that season, because the backlog. One, I didn't have anyone to cover me. That was a problem in itself. Two, the backlog of what I would need to handle while I was gone was just not even worth taking the time off, because the stress would be too much. Like I said, every single day I had to work on the weekends. I had to often work late just to keep up with the demand, with the workload. So again, even though I was making pretty decent money doing what I was doing, it became clear that I needed to decide what was more important, the money or my long-term wellness and my family and honestly just my mental health, which was completely depleted by that point. I was so burnt out, so stressed. Going back to the PTSD thing, when somebody would reach out to me with a problem, I would literally have to fight every urge to just shut down, because like I said, because it was so constant, because I never had this feeling of safety of I was unplugged and I didn't need to work for this set amount of time. I never had that. Even overnight, there could be issues that I needed to handle that could have come up that were urgent, and I was the only one responsible to handle that. So yeah, it was just crazy, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so just imagine years of that. So you can imagine my relief when I brought up the idea to my husband of leaving my job and taking time off, when he responded really positively to that. And I was thinking originally I was only going to take like a week, 2 weeks off and transition into a new job in the same field, hoping that just the change of like a new company would be the solution, the change that I needed. But when I started discussing it with my husband, he actually encouraged me to take a month or 2 off if I wanted. And I was so surprised, because I was like, is that even okay? I had been the responsible one, the primary breadwinner for so long that I didn't even allow myself to think in that way. So when he kind of gave me the permission in a sense to think like that, oh my God, the relief. then a month does go by, and I start to think, like, man, I don't feel decompressed yet. Like, it literally has taken me so much longer than I expected to calm down from the stress, because I've been living this way for so many years. And I started to entertain, what if I just took the entire 2023 off from employment? Which felt like an even crazier idea. I mean, I went from thinking 2 weeks was crazy to maybe I could entertain an entire year of just focusing on me and resting and healing and working through my issues, my mental health and my physical health, and prioritizing me for the first time since I've had children, pretty much. And when I nervously brought it up to my husband again, it turned out that he actually was already thinking the same thing as me. And that he said that he was going to actually suggest that I do that. Which is, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to him for giving me this opportunity. It's obviously meant that he's had to step up financially. He's had to work some more to make it financially possible. But he pointed out to me, he reminded me not to feel guilty about it, because that's essentially what I did for him during 2020 through pretty much 2022, those 3 years after the whole lockdown and stuff happened. My husband lost his job. He was terminated, and he started just doing freelance work, focusing completely on his main passion as his work, and wasn't bringing in nearly as much income. So that's really why I had to step it up during those years to bring in the income. But I was happy to do that if it meant that he was able to focus more on what he wanted to focus on. And I don't know why I kind of blocked that out of my mind when I started thinking about my own transition into freedom. But he reminded me of that so kindly and graciously that he was happy to return the favor for me. So that makes me feel a little bit better about taking an entire year off of work. And like I said, it wasn't an immediate relief or change when I left my job. So I left officially, my last day was November 30th, 2022. And it took me 6 months. So it wasn't until June, July, honestly, of this year, 2023, that I started to feel like the dust had settled, and that I could start thinking more clearly, that I could start changing the negative patterns that I had created over the years. The guilt of not being productive all the time, and my overstimulation, overwhelming feelings that I would have when I'm with my kids, for example. When they start getting amped up, they start arguing, or they're being loud, or just the environment becomes overwhelming. In the past, I had this tendency to just quickly jump straight to the overwhelmed, stressed, can't handle it, angry, bitter version of myself, because I was in survival mode and I didn't have the mental capacity to problem solve in my personal life. So it really took me those 6 months to even get to the point where I could recognize when the old patterns of my brain were coming to the surface, and realizing that those feelings, those reactions and responses no longer served me in this season. And so I'm not going to say that everything is 100% better now. I definitely am so grateful and so happy that I'm in this season of just focusing on what I want to focus on. But I will say that it's been a process to get to undo and unlearn a lot of the workaholic and overstimulated responses that have become habit for me. So I'm just grateful that I can now recognize when those feelings are coming up, when I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, while I'm starting to feel unsafe, feeling like there's so much on my shoulders. I'm able to now just remind myself to take a breath and just remind myself that I'm safe and there's not a million fires all around me to put out. There's not a million tasks on my back that I don't want to deal with. Like, I just remind myself that the only problems I have in this season are problems that I want to have, that they're my personal issues that I get to handle now with clarity and peace and time. So yeah, so right now it's getting to the end of September. And I initially was going to really use this year to reconnect with my creativity. You know, I have been focusing more on my YouTube channel, making digital products, getting back into making some music even. But I found out in May, I think, that I'm actually pregnant with my third child. So just throwing another wrench into the situation, which initially I was kind of mad when I found out that I was pregnant, because I just entered this season of like having freedom for the first time. My kids are old enough to where they're both in elementary school Monday through Friday, so I've been having and enjoying this time where no one is home except for me. It's more freedom than I've had in years, because when I started that job that I left that I was telling you about, my kids were super young and they stayed home with me 24/7 up until they were like 3, 4. They reached like a preschool age, and we ended up putting them in a preschool for a few years. Only part-time. It was just a few days a week. And but for those like first 2-3 initial years, I was exclusively working from home with my kids there at the same time. So it's like, this is way more freedom than I've had in so long. So when I found out that I was pregnant, I started getting pregnancy symptoms in April, I want to say. Yeah, April. I naturally had to grieve a little bit the year that I thought I was about to have, where I thought I was going to be completely free. I was in a really good gym routine that had to completely stall because my morning sickness and food aversions were so severe that I literally was just like bedridden the first month and a half of my first trimester. And I really didn't start feeling normal again until like halfway through my second trimester. So I really had to just be so gentle with myself and allow myself to feel that feeling. But once I accepted it and realized that this baby is a gift and probably healing me in so many ways that I didn't expect, it became much easier to get settled back into the routine, because really nothing's changed. I do need to eat more often, I do need to rest more often, but I still have this freedom, and I still have the time alone when the kids are at school and whatnot. So it's been good, and I'm now in my third trimester. My due date is December 1st, so I'm getting kind of close now. My belly's getting big, and yeah, so I'll be having a baby by the end of the year. and I will be giving birth at home again, so I'm excited to be able to experience that once more. Another beautiful home birth, which I had for the first 2 children. But this time, you guys, I'm going to be able to get to enjoy it. I have no work, no forced work, no employment that I am hating. I get to work on my YouTube channels, my Etsy shop, things that fulfill me creatively. Everything is my choice right now. And that's such a blessing. Truly thanks to God. Literally, in early 2022, I was crying out to God, asking him to save me. I knew I wasn't in a good place, but I didn't know what I needed to do to get out of that rut. And truly, everything's just happened in a way where I feel like I've been delivered out of slavery, out of mental bondage to that job, to my circumstances, to my survival mode and anxiety. And so I've been feeling so much better these days. And so I am sorry that I haven't been posting here nearly as much as I should, but just know that there's healing happening on the other side. When you don't see me, I am focusing on what's most important right now, which is raising my family, learning to have joy in raising my kids, spending time with my kids, being present with my husband and my kids, with my life, being in the driver's seat for the first time in a really long time. So that's where I'm at right now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will hopefully see you soon. I'm going to link my other channel below if you guys are interested in learning about digital products on Etsy and want to follow along my journey of growing my Etsy shop online.